Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. We're covering the spoilers for Swallowed Star episode 219. Keep in mind this info comes from the novel, so there may be some minor tweaks when the actual episode drops. Ready to see what's next? In the previous episode, Luo Fang understood that the first place he needed to explore was the Beast God Sector. Beast God Sector is the first asset I need to rely on. The second is some of my secrets. And last but not least, time. Otherwise, Master Sitting Mountain Guest wouldn't have specified a time frame of 100,000 eras. Luo Fang knew that if he wanted to succeed, he needed to start from the Beast God Sector. He was aware that since Teacher Sitting Mountain Guest had paid a hefty price for him to enter this place, there must be something very beneficial for him in this Beast God Sector. Therefore, Luo Fang started looking around the Beast God Sector again, this time doing so very conscientiously and meticulously. Firstly, on one of the vast plains, he found some technique sculptures, where he acquired two types of amplification techniques. One was a soul amplification technique known as 9-peak lock. When mastered to perfection, it could bring about a soul amplification of 99.99, which could basically be considered 100 times. The other was a godly body amplification technique called Golden Beast God. When mastered to perfection, the amplification could reach 100 times. Initially, Luo Fang thought it would be very difficult for him to master these techniques. He did not expect to be able to master Golden Beast God from beginning to the end without faltering. And it only took him 3 days to master the technique to perfection. Whether it was his Mosha body, original Earthling body, remote ocean body, or golden-horned beast body, all of these could put this godly body amplification technique to good use. 9-peak lock was about mastering the ultimate control of blurring godly power. It had extremely high requirements of the will and consciousness. However, Luo Fang's will and consciousness were already at a Universe Overlord standard. As Universe Overlords were almost perfect in terms of soul amplification, it would be a piece of cake for Luo Fang to master this technique. Within just 1 month, he mastered 9-peak lock to perfection. My blurred godly power, my will, and my consciousness are all of Universe Overlord standard, and so mastering this technique was a breeze, Luo Fang said to himself. This was how capability played a part in determining the level of difficulty of mastering techniques. Out of thousands of undying emperors, it was unlikely that even one could have mastered 9-peak lock to pristine perfection. Mastering Golden Beast God took Luo Fang less than a month to master. Thereafter, he continued to look around the entire Beast God Sector. In the Beast God Sector, there were 64 Beast God sculptures. There were 8 natural Beast Gods, each of which had 8 sculptures. There were tens of thousands of secret techniques, 36 ultimate techniques of Universe Masters, 123 pinnacle techniques of Universe Masters, over 3,000 ultimate techniques of Universe Knights, and tens of thousands of pinnacle techniques of Universe Knights. And there was also a large volume of informal law engravings. These informal secret techniques were mostly incomprehensible. Only the thickest and thinnest engravings could be somewhat understood. After researching these techniques for over half a year, Luo Fang came to one of the Golden Beast God sculptures. Raising his head, he scrutinized the sculpture. "These techniques are useless to me," he concluded. "These were created by other great beings. Even if I were to learn them, they would still be better suited to others. In my hands, the powers will be much weaker." Luo Fang gazed at the Beast God sculpture. "Many of the techniques I have come across mention that one must be able to comprehend these Beast God sculptures to gain understanding. Even Universe Masters are trying to comprehend these Beast God sculptures. In the entirety of the Beast God Sector, the most precious elements are these 64 Beast God sculptures." Luo Fang studied on. In the Beast God Sector, at the apex of one of its mountains, Ancestor stood in a casual manner, overlooking the vast forest afar. His eyes came to rest on Luo Fang, who stood before the Golden Beast God sculpture. You have actually stood before that golden beast sculpture for more than 3 years, whispered Ancestor. Seems like you have come to realize that these beast god sculptures are my sector's most precious possessions. That's right. All the extraordinary geniuses and superior beings that qualified to be part of my Space Beast Alliance realized that these beast god sculptures are the key. There were many who could realize this. However, those who were able to figure out the secret technique, especially to figure out the ultimate secret technique of a universe master level, were extremely few. Also, those who were able to understand the ultimate secret technique of a universe master level were all universe masters. Ancestor was carefree and at ease. He knew that there were many techniques in the beast god sector that seemed precious but were actually worth little. The 64 beast god sculptures were the true treasures that were priceless. Luo Fang stood before the 8 sculptures of the golden beast god. Time spent on each sculpture varied. For the shorter periods, he could spend a year or more gaining understanding. For the longer periods, he could spend up to 8 years gaining understanding. As for the Thunder Beast God, Light Beast God, and the other Beast God sculptures, he spent a much shorter time trying to comprehend them, as ultimately, he would not be traversing along the Beast God path. The 64 Beast God sculptures took him a total of 52 years to study. The more I look, the more I feel that these are perfect. The Golden Beast God and the 8 sculptures. Luo Fang felt that after looking at these 8 sculptures of the Golden Beast God, he could feel its anger, happiness, tranquility, rage, insanity. All kinds of situations were made familiar to him. Closing his eyes, he felt as though he was looking at the real Golden Beast God. The lack of one sculpture would render everything incomplete, Luo Fang decided with a slight nod. For any great being, just by looking at the 64 sculptures, there would be a feeling of merging as one with the sculptures. The secret engravings representing the universe path on these 64 sculptures made him feel as though he were becoming one with the sculptures. They could constitute a complete set of super techniques. They evoked a feeling of singularity. Every great being that has come to the Beast God sector of the Space Beast Alliance could have been able to feel this, mused Luo Fang, but no one can really figure out the ultimate secret technique. Because out of the most powerful 36 types of universe ultimate techniques, some must be acquired through understanding the Golden Beast God, some must be acquired through understanding the Thunder Beast God, and occasionally, one must be able to gain the understanding of 2 beast gods put together. Judging from the power these different technique engravings left behind, they all seem to match each other in strength. Obviously, the level of each technique would be similar. By combining all 8 beast god sculptures to create a super secret technique, this technique should outmatch all the others. After acquiring 2 amplification techniques and studying the beast god sculptures, Luo Fang started to study himself as the subject. I must succeed, he said. First, I have to depend on the beast god sector. Second, I must be different from the rest. Third, I need time. I have studied and now understand the beast god sector thoroughly. As for me, to be considered truly different from the rest, I need something that even generations of supreme beings of the Space Beast Alliance, apart from Ancestor, would not be able to compare to. That could be the 9-volume manual, Star Tower, the talent technique, I Am the Universe, or my endless remote ocean. Luo Fang analyzed his options. The 9-volume manual was one of a kind in the universe. Star Tower was one of the supreme true treasures of the universe. Other than Ancestor, the chances of other beings in the Space Beast Alliance possessing supreme true treasures were very low. Or at least, there were none that Luo Fang knew of. The talent technique I Am the Universe had been bestowed by the universe for reaching the perfect life gene level. It could be assumed that many special life forms who were powerful and unique might only have reached a life gene level of thousands of times. Those close to tens of thousands of times were a rare sight, let alone those who had attained perfection. And space beasts were not special life forms. Unless they possessed techniques such as the 9-volume manual, they would never be able to make it this far. The endless remote ocean represented limitless godly power. What a pity that he was in another universe. There was no way he could absorb godly power from the endless remote ocean. In the primal universe, Luo Fang's original earthling body headed first to Star Tower to study the secret engravings in the sculptures on the countless stars and sky pillars. Unfortunately, these were more profound than the ultimate techniques of the universe masters on the Beast God sector. He could not figure them out. Then he placed the contents of the 9-volume manual under scrutiny and studied them with detail. This was a technique solely used for enhancing one's life gene level. In terms of depth, but it was comparable to the secret engravings on the Star Tower, which was far more profound than the ultimate techniques of universe masters. Similarly, he could not comprehend the profound knowledge, so he could only train in a methodical manner. As for putting his talent technique I Am the Universe to use, Luo Fang and his other bodies were unable to use it unless enemies entered his god country. Only then would the endless remote ocean within his god country enable him to use I Am the Universe. Talent technique. I Am the Universe. Hong, long, long. At that moment, the endless godly power of ocean water went ablaze to produce limitless energy. In the sky above the endless remote ocean, a huge oval-shaped sphere with a diameter of tens of billions of miles appeared. It was a miniature universe. A universe? Said Luo Fang. A miniature universe? Luo Fang used his consciousness to enter the miniature universe. He was filled with overwhelming excitement. Since the day he first acquired I Am the Universe, this was his first time using it. According to what was imprinted on his consciousness, when this incomparably magical talent technique was activated, the rate at which his godly power was used up would be alarming. It was almost as though once activated, the godly power of a golden-horned beast's godly body would be completely consumed. Luckily for him, his endless remote ocean was extensive enough, a miniature universe. This vast universe, with a diameter of tens of billions of miles, could contain anything. Within it was only vast nothingness. There was a subtle, chaotic airflow. This miniature universe was none other than Luo Fang himself. How magical, he said in wonder. Absolute control. Absolute control. The moment he transformed into this miniature universe, Luo Fang grasped the full understanding of his powers. He could divide out part of his godly body in this universe to fight his enemies. And in his own miniature universe, he could transfer the oppression from the outside into the miniature universe. His power would then be greatly increased while his opponent faced stronger suppression. This was merely one of the attached abilities. The strongest one was Explosion of Universe. Luo Fang could not help marveling. He only needed one thought to activate the Explosion of Universe, during which his miniature universe would collapse. The magnitude of this power was unbelievable. What a transcendental technique, said Luo Fang. Wait to think that I possess such a powerful talent technique and can transform into a miniature universe. Luo Fang could not help but marvel. At the same time, his consciousness had started to study his miniature universe attentively. On the thin membrane encompassing the huge oval-shaped sphere, boundless energy took the form of numerous law threads, interlacing with one another to form an enormous picture of law engravings that was continuously undergoing transformation into a chaotic airflow. This chaotic airflow then circulated around the enormous picture of secret engravings and coagulated to form the membrane around the miniature universe. The remainder of the airflow would then waft off into the atmosphere and eventually diminish, said the enormous picture of law engravings. This was the basis for how Luo Fang could display his talent technique, but he was completely clueless, as this was the first time he had laid eyes on this picture of law engravings. The picture of the Luo engravings transformed into an oval-shaped sphere formed by millions upon millions of Luo threads interlacing with one another. It was inconceivably complicated, forming the law of revolution of this miniature universe. And the amount of godly power that Luo Fang used would be used to supply this entire miniature universe with energy. Technically speaking, it was not a real universe. In a real universe, energy was recyclable and should be inexhaustible. But Luo Fang's energy was continuously used up, obviously. And this picture of Luo engravings was an extremely simplified version of the primal picture of engravings, which was the truest law of revolution of the primal universe. Yet even so, it was impressive enough to render Luo Fang tongue-tied. It's too... But Luo Fang couldn't complete his thought. He was completely taken aback by this picture of engravings. Its beauty was astounding, more astounding than any other ultimate techniques. It was even more beautiful than the secret engravings on the numerous beast god sculptures. Luo Fang was filled with amazement. He thoroughly appreciated the intricate and delicate engraving picture of the miniature universe. Time passed, and the godly power consumed in 90 seconds was equal to that of the remote ocean body at the height of more than 55,000 miles. However, the remote ocean body could withstand it easily. This? Luo Fang had made the shocking discovery that the engraving picture could be disintegrated, and small engraving pictures showed up after the disintegration. Each of the small engraving pictures was an engraving picture on the 64 beast god sculptures. After the disintegration, 92 small beast god engraving pictures showed up, and many of them were identical. However, they all came from the engraving pictures of the 64 beast god sculptures. The 92 beast god engraving pictures were like components, making up a single mechanism after being combined. There were countless threads connecting all the pictures, and the connections were natural and perfect, comprising a miniature universe. How could this be? Wondered Luo Fang. All 64 engraving pictures combined to form an engraving picture of a miniature universe? Luo Fang suddenly saw a new door open. If he didn't know those 64 beast god engraving pictures, the miniature universe engraving picture would be too intricate for him to understand. However, now that he was viewing it as beast god engraving pictures, they were much easier to understand. It was just a combination of 64 engraving pictures. Incredible, said Luo Fang. He was mesmerized. He had not realized until now that there was another way to understand the incredible inherited technique. Inside the original universe flew an ordinary spaceship. This disciple of mine has a remote ocean body that has reached the perfect life gene level even before he became undying, Sitting Mountain Guest whispered in the spaceship. He must have been bestowed a supreme inherited technique. As for supreme inherited techniques, they hold the top spot among all the techniques in the universe, and all of them are perfect. As for those 64 engraving pictures, they're the perfect embodiment of 8 inborn beast gods. The 8 beast gods stand for 8 merge laws. Universe operation laws can be classified into gold, wood, water, fire, ground, light, wind, lightning, time, and space. However, they can also be classified into 8 merge laws. Sitting Mountain Guest smiled. He had already reached the pinnacle level possible in the universe, and he could see everything clearly. All of the highest level techniques can be disintegrated into 64 engraving pictures. As for those that are inferior, they can't even rival 1 beast god engraving picture. They do not qualify. Luo Fang is examining those 64 beast god sculptures, and he knows those 64 engraving pictures. Once he performs his supreme inherited technique, he'll realize the connection between the supreme inherited techniques and the 64 engraving pictures. He'll start with the engraving pictures and create techniques using those pictures. He doesn't even need to understand those engraving pictures, Sitting Mountain Guest thought. All he needs to do is remember those engraving pictures and their structures. And with the engraving picture he got from his own supreme inherited technique, he can totally try that. Once he succeeds, it will be possible for him to create a simplified technique of a supreme inherited technique. And if he can actually succeed, it means he's a high achiever in engraving pictures. Using those 64 engraving pictures as elements, there were great beings who did that before the Grand Nirvana. If Luo Fang can also accomplish something in that field, and together with his ordinary law training, he'll make many more improvements. Plus, he is able to better see the origin of the universe. Sitting Mountain Guest was making a huge bet. No one had succeeded on the path of engraving pictures since the original universe came into being. The main reason for this was that only a few were qualified to see the 64 engraving pictures. Even those who saw them couldn't understand them. However, before the Grand Nirvana, some great beings had succeeded, which meant that the method was possible. Different methods supported each other, but they all led to the same end: the origin mystery of the universe. You've come so far after only 100,000 years, Sitting Mountain Guest thought, and you survived the life or death inheritance. Now I'll give you 1 billion years. Let's see whether you can make some accomplishments on engraving pictures. Engraving pictures training had always been a secret. After all, the time of the Grand Nirvana was immeasurable, and even before the Grand Nirvana, only a few practiced engraving pictures. Obsessed. Luo Fang was completely obsessed. He hadn't expected those 64 engraving pictures to form such an incredible technique. He had always thought that I Am the Universe was so powerful and intricate that he couldn't possibly understand it. However, he could now. It was the combination of those 64 engraving pictures, and some of them overlapped with each other, leading to 92 engraving pictures. And does that mean the combination of those 64 engraving pictures result in significant power? Luo Fang immediately started to study it. At the peak of one of the mountains in the Beast God sector, Ancestor appeared and looked down. Weird. Why does he keep drawing engraving pictures? Ancestor watched from a distance and saw one engraving picture after another forming around Luo Fang, who sat in front of a gold beast god sculpture with his legs crossed. "He's been drawing the engraving pictures for 10,000 years?" said Ancestor, thoroughly confused. Luo Fang found the combination of the engraving pictures to be unpredictable and mysterious after studying all of them. If he made a mistake, the power would tumble. However, Luo Fang was randomly combining different engraving pictures based on the engraving picture of I Am the Universe, and he had created dozens of techniques. Most, however, were weak, and only one of them could rival an undying technique. It came close to the third move of Star Map. This thrilled Luo Fang. He now understood that the engraving pictures were a new path, and it might be his only chance to defeat Ancestor Body within a period of 100,000 eras. Luo Fang started with a random drawing. There were billions of ways for law threads to be combined for I Am the Universe. He started by randomly copying and simulating without rules, but after 10,000 years of trying, he had successfully created some weak techniques. He also understood the differences between different combinations. Based on his extensive practice, he extrapolated the possibilities, and from the possibilities, he extrapolated his theories. In the first 100,000 years, and Luo Fang worked by trial and error, he only created 2 techniques that could rival the third move of Star Map. He did, however, discover some patterns after all those trials. Luo Fang decided to concentrate on the 8 engraving pictures of the Gold Beast God while temporarily giving up the other 56 engraving pictures. Based on his 100,000 years of trial and error, Luo Fang was most accurate when randomly combing the 8 engraving pictures of the Gold Beast God. After 1,000,000 years, Luo Fang started to understand the mysteries of the engraving pictures of the Gold Beast God. After 10 million years, he completely understood the mysteries and power of the combinations of those engraving pictures. Of course, it was only the tip of the iceberg compared to the engraving picture of I Am the Universe. But finally, the Luo Fang completely comprehended it. During those 10 million years, Luo Fang accidentally created an ultimate technique for universe nights. Although he didn't understand the theories behind it, he remembered the way to perform it, just as he did with his inherited techniques. He memorized all the law threads and was able to perform it instantly, which was theoretically impossible. Law threads required users to understand the fundamentals of them in order to be performed, unless they were sculpted in the mind like inherited techniques. However, Luo Fang didn't need to perform all the law threads. All he needed to do was perform several engraving pictures and combine them. The implications were profound. Luo Fang found the engraving pictures to be mysterious. It might be a unique and unusual way, but it was a highway to the top. Did Master Sitting Mountain Guest know this before? He wondered. Is that why he led me into the Beast God sector? Why haven't I heard of anyone among us humans who has practiced it? Why have I never heard of this practice method? Luo Fang was sometimes baffled by these many questions. For what it's worth, it's an incredible practicing method. Engraving pictures were like components. If the universe was a skyscraper, the components were the individual resources combined to create the whole. And there were many ways to build a skyscraper. So far, Luo Fang had found 900 million ways to combine the engraving pictures, and he could perfectly manipulate more than 100,000 of them. It was a path that was completely new to him, so he could only explore it all by himself. The more he studied it, and the more combinations he knew and manipulated. Luo Fang forgot about the passage of time. He was immersed in the engraving pictures of the gold beast god. Time flew by. 10 million years, followed by another 10 million years. Luo Fang frequently went to watch the beast god pictures of the gold beast god and studied them. At the peak of the tallest mountain in the beast god sector, Ancestor looked down, frowned. Luo Fang had been in the Beast God sector for 180 million years, and Ancestor could tell from the way Luo Fang trained that he was following the path of engraving pictures, a path that led to the top. I might lose this time, thought Ancestor. Sitting Mountain Guest is indeed impressive, he said. He was aware of this way to practice, and he was certain that his disciple would succeed on that path. Ancestor also speculated that the disadvantage of that path was that it didn't have a strong foundation. However, if one was lucky enough to have inspirations, he could create terrifically powerful techniques. Ancestor's face became grave. No way. Ancestor was shocked as he looked down at a faraway spot. How is it possible that he could comprehend the heart of the beast? Weeds grew all over the plain. There was a towering sculpture of a gigantic lizard positioned in a slight squat, as though poised for takeoff. And at the back of the gold beast god sculpture, Luo Fang lay on a bed of scales, eyes squinting. He was looking in midair, where countless complicated gold threads of engravings flowed continuously. And his hundreds of millions of years of painstaking cultivation were no different from one another. In fact, Luo Fang had fallen into a unique state. He'd spent hundreds of millions of years studying the 8 pictures of engravings of the gold beast god, where every picture of engravings represented a different aspect of the gold beast god. 8 pictures of engravings. Luo Fang felt as though he was looking at a different face of the gold beast god every day, and day after day, month after month, year after year. The years went by. Luo Fang went on studying these 8 pictures of engravings, and for a good many years, he felt as though he had the company of gold beast god every waking and sleeping moment of his life. Currently, Luo Fang had lost himself to the 180 million years spent on studying these pictures of engravings. And he forgot who he was. Now, he felt as though he actually was a beast god. Joy, happiness, anger, rage, insanity. He was roaming the universe. He was fighting his enemies in bloody battles stretching to endless voids. The fighting extended to other galaxies, until finally, he unwillingly breathed his last. Luo Fang lay unmoving, his eyes gradually closing. Only the gold beast god was real. All else was fabricated. His sleep went on for a whole millennium. During this millennium, even Luo Fang's original earthling body and his remote ocean body went into a deep slumber. No matter who tried, no one at all was able to contact Luo Fang. Over the course of 1,000 years, Luo Fang forgot his human memories. He forgot everything. In his deep slumber, he thought of himself as a beast god. A millennium went by peacefully. And then Luo Fang opened his eyes. "Is this the so-called transformation of things?" asked Luo Fang. "Was it my illusion, or was it reality?" The moment he opened his eyes, he was in a trance, stupefied and unable to differentiate whether he was Luo Fang or a beast god. But quickly, he sobered up. Hundreds of millions of years' worth of human memories came flooding back and overrode the memories that he had collected while he was incarnated as the beast god. A beast god? What a magical feeling! Luo Fang lay on the back of the gold beast god sculpture, reminiscing about the feeling of being a beast god, which was still so vivid to him. He felt as though he could go back into that state easily. A beast god was an entirely different existence from that of humans. It was in a state that was detached, free, and true to its own nature. At the apex of the mountain, Ancestor watched the entire episode, shaking his head amidst sighs. He found it all so ironic. "The final bottleneck of the beast god path," he said, "heart of beast god. The most difficult stage to comprehend and the most difficult to find, yet he has mastered it." The beast god path, according to the ancestral god school, was divided into a total of 7 major inheritances. Upon figuring out the entire beast god path, one would have attained the universe master level and become a pinnacle existence in the universe. Yet it was not that simple for one who wanted to become a universe master. Just as it was with the golden-horned beast's lineage, after countless eras, they only had a total of 2 universe masters. Similarly, the Flaming Star Beast's lineage had only 1 universe master. But all of these clearly reiterated the fact that becoming a universe master was difficult to the point of nearly being impossible. There were many levels to accomplish. One of the beast god path's most difficult levels to figure out, because of its ethereal nature, was understanding the heart of beast god. Upon achieving this level, one could truly become an incarnation of the beast god. This had left many universe overlords wondering, like Shi Luo Duo and the many universe overlords, if they could only be incarnations of pseudo-beast gods, because they were unable to understand the heart of beast god. Without a heart of beast god, there was no way one could truly become an incarnation of a beast god. For Luo Fang, this was an unintentional reward. As he spent such a long time wholeheartedly studying the 8 pictures of secret engravings, tens of millions of years of dedicated work had led him into a deep slumber where he forgot everything. During his slumber, he dreamed about leading the life of a beast god for a long time. This Luo Fang made a resounding name of himself in less than 100,000 years, said Ancestor. In my beast god sector, he has cultivated himself for around 180 million years. He has dedicated himself wholly to studying the secret engravings of golden space. Without any guidance, solely based on his own experience, he has attained the highest level. At the tip of his fingers, he could create techniques at the universe night level. Obviously, he will have become extremely familiar with the Gold Beast God's 8 pictures of secret engravings. And these 8 pictures are the full representation of Gold Beast God. Moreover, thought Ancestor, golden horned beasts are descendants of the Gold Beast God. They can easily understand the heart of Beast God. For 2 to merge as one, accomplishing this is expected. Ancestor quickly understood why it was the process of accumulating richly and breaking forth vastly. Luo Fang had waited patiently, so when he had everything he needed to know in place, he would achieve success. After all, Luo Fang did spend 180 million years studying these pictures of secret engravings. It only took him thousands of years to attain the pinnacle emperor level, tens of thousands of years to develop his talent of creating 3 forms of ultimate technique. If he continued to study the laws given 180 million years, Luo Fang would have cultivated himself to the level of a senior universe knight, all just to defeat Ancestor. So, Luo Fang had not spent an inkling of effort on law comprehension. He gave his all to studying the pictures of secret engravings. Hence, he attained his achievements in this chosen studies, which far surpassed his achievements in law comprehension. After all, law comprehension required many tens of thousands of years to cultivate. Just studying the pictures of secret engravings, he spent 180 million years. That was simply incomparable. This is... Ancestor, who had calmed himself previously, suddenly revealed a sharp change in expression. He was unable to believe what he saw as he looked down at the beast god sculpture on the vast plain. Luo Fang was lying down on the sculpture. Even when he had previously comprehended the heart of the beast god, he had not shown such arrogance and rudeness. On the back of the beast god sculpture. After Luo Fang woke from a millennium of deep slumber, he started to study the 8 pictures of engravings of the gold beast god all over again. With the picture of secret engravings of his miniature universe as the final template, he tried to create a technique of his own. He could still feel the aftermath of his 1,000 years of slumber, during which the heart of beast god possessed an indistinct influence over him. Hua, hua, hua. Countless golden threads floated mid-air. "It should be like this," he said. "Yes, like this. It must be by pure luck or coincidence." And as Luo Fang himself was unclear of the underlying theories he used when he speedily combined all 8 pictures of secret engravings. Other than the majority of the law threads being combined based on his strong foundation, there were a few law threads that were combined purely based on his unique instincts, where he was free of inhibitions and followed his heart's desire without a second thought. It was as though the gold beast god was wandering about the universe, following its heart, killing when it wanted to kill, eating when it wanted to eat, sleeping when it wanted to sleep. When it came to the method of combining the law threads he was still unsure of, he combined them with such an attitude, following his heart. The most important thing was to feel pleased and fulfilled in the moment. Hong. Suddenly, a golden ray appeared. The golden ray sliced through heaven and earth in the blink of an eye. The frozen space was forcefully pried apart to reveal a ripple gully. Even the ground, under the resonating waves of the light ray, was cut apart to give way to a deep valley tens of millions of miles long. In an instant, the whole surface underwent a fundamental change. Then normality returned. I am left with such little godly power," said Luo Fang. He was dumbfounded as he sat on the back of the gold beast god sculpture. He gazed at the end of the vast land, at the deep valley, until everything returned to normal. What level of technique was that? Luo Fang could not believe he was so powerful. A few thousand years on law comprehension was enough for him to attain pinnacle undying level. If these 180 million years were spent devoted completely to studying law comprehension, for him to master the 6th, or even to the 7th stage of the beast god path was certainly achievable. Yet he had spent this long period of time studying only the pictures of secret engravings. He was certainly successful, and now he could easily create techniques at the Universe Knight level, or at times he might even be able to create ultimate techniques at the Universe Overlord level. He was that powerful. Yet in terms of magnitude, his power was far less than that of the light ray. Could it be the ultimate technique of a Universe Master? Luo Fang still found it unbelievable. If he had not been mastering it, he would not have known. After all the studies on the pictures of secret engravings, he knew that while sometimes, with a stroke of luck, the pictures of secret engravings could allow one to miraculously create a set of technique. But the more powerful a technique was, the more it was impossible to depend solely on luck. Foundation was more important. 180 million years. Luo Fang was very accomplished in his studies of the pictures of secret engravings and could easily create techniques that were at the universe night level. But the most powerful technique that he had created so far was merely the Universe Overlord Ultimate Technique, which was 2 levels higher than the ones he normally created. If he wanted to create a technique of a Universe Master level, he guessed he might need many hundreds of millions of years more. If the day came when he could readily create techniques of Universe Overlord level however he pleased, then who knew? He might get lucky and happen to create a technique of the Universe Master level. The foundation required would be higher. The most talented painter, with a stroke of inspiration, could paint a superior picture. But without a solid foundation, even with inspiration, one would not be able to produce a sensational piece of work. Luo Fang had now built a very strong foundation for himself. As an individual in the context of the universe, he could be considered a master, a founder capable of creating techniques. However, if he was expected to create techniques of universe master level, then, to him, it was still something unbelievable. Is it a technique of the universe master level? So, Luo Fang jumped up from where he was and flew to a faraway spot on the mountain. On his shoulder was a golden-horned beast. As after flying for a short while, he arrived at the mountain cliff where there were 3 technique sculptures, all of which had been left behind by Space Beast Universe Masters. These 3 were all techniques of the Universe Master level. I shall carve the engravings of my creation with the use of my power. I should be able to understand it. Luo Fang looked at the stone surface. Godly power was gushing out, and all he could see at that very moment was a huge picture of a technique that was complicated beyond comprehension. Even many universe knights would have felt as though they were reading a heavenly book. Even if Luo Fang were to spend 180 million years, he would still be unable to comprehend this. This picture of technique was simply too deep to be fathomed. It exuded an endless wave of power that corresponded to the magnitude of power coming from the other 3 ultimate technique sculptures beside it. It was not the least bit weaker. It represented hundreds of millions of years of hard work, plus a heart of beast god. At any moment, Luo Fang spontaneously created such a technique. This was a technique he had created with the picture of secret engravings of his miniature universe as a template. It might be considered a simplified version of it. It was simply a near-perfect combination of the 8 beast god pictures of the gold beast god that formed the attack-type technique, ultimate level technique of Universe Master. At the apex of the mountain, Ancestor watched. Tens of millions of years spent on experiencing, learning, and creating, he muttered. And the heart of beast god. If at any point in time, the 8 pictures of secret engravings of the gold beast god are almost perfectly combined, whether in a manner that makes sense or not, such a technique will emerge. At that moment, he transmitted a message to Sitting Mountain Guest who was in the primal universe. "Sitting Mountain Guest," he said, "why are you still not on your way here?" After only a short while, Sitting Mountain Guest showed up at the peak of the mountain. "Did you call me here for drinks?" Sitting Mountain Guest asked as he strolled toward Ancestor. Ancestor pointed in the distance, standing beside the cliff. "Look at your disciple, Luo Fang." Sitting Mountain Guest looked in the direction Ancestor pointed and saw Luo Fang sitting beside a cliff. He appeared surprised and joyful after gazing for a while, then started to laugh. "Old beast god, no one in the universe can rival you on the path of 8 gods. However, this disciple of mine created a technique using the 8 engraving pictures of gold beast god. Do you admit your defeat?" "How can you say I'm going to lose before he even fights me?" Ancestor said. Sitting Mountain Guest shook his head. "Stop quibbling." Ancestor didn't continue about the upcoming fight. Instead, he exclaimed, "Your disciple is indeed impressive. It's fair to say that he had some luck when creating the technique, but no one in history could practice the engraving picture so well in only 180 million years without any instructions. Besides, he has comprehended the heart of Beast God, and that's why it's easier for him to comprehend the 8 engraving pictures of Gold Beast God. It's easy for him to create Universe Knight level techniques, and if he's willing to devote his time and energy, he'll be able to create the Universe Overlord level ones as well. Even real Universe Overlords needed to spend an overwhelmingly long time to create Universe Overlord level ultimate techniques. To some extent, even those on the engraving path were better at creating techniques. Luo Fang was at least at the senior Universe Knight level when it came to his accomplishments among those who were on the engraving path. The Heart of Beast God? Sitting Mountain Guest looked pleased. Then he guffawed. A pleasant surprise. What a pleasant surprise indeed. He's a golden-horned beast, which makes him a descendant of beast gods, Ancestor exclaimed. Well, his bloodline inheritance is close to Gold Beast God, and with his research into those 8 engraving pictures, he can finally comprehend the heart of Beast God. He is indeed lucky, but I can't say it's because of luck alone. Ha ha ha. Sitting Mountain Guest laughed heartily. Look at you. Ancestor shook his head. No wonder Sitting Mountain Guest was so proud. The accomplishments on engraving path could help law comprehension to a great extent. There wouldn't be many barriers until Luo Fang became a Universe Overlord, especially with the Heart of Beast God. It would now be easier for him to proceed along the Beast God path. Heart of Beast God was the greatest challenge to turn from a Universe Overlord into a Universe Master, and that problem was now solved. Although it was still extremely difficult for him to become a Universe Master, he at least had a much higher chance. Sitting Mountain Guest glanced at Ancestor and rejoiced inside. Little do you know that this disciple of mine obtained inherited techniques before, and he can better study the engraving pictures with the instruction from the engraving picture of his supreme inherited technique. Regardless, it's still impressive of him to create a supreme inherited technique and comprehend the heart of Beast God in only 180 million years. Sitting Mountain Guest looked down, in front of the cliff. The energy from the sculpture of the engraving picture was equivalent to that of the 3 ultimate techniques of Universe Masters. I did it, said Luo Fang. It's an ultimate technique of Universe Masters, and Luo Fang stood in front of the cliff for a long time. He felt like he was in a dream. I did it, he repeated. After 180 million years, Luo Fang was confident that he could create ultimate techniques of Universe Overlords. As for ultimate techniques of Universe Masters, it would involve some luck. Luo Fang suddenly looked to the sky and transmitted his voice. Ancestor, he said, I challenge you. Ancestor, wearing in a white cape, quickly flew in from afar. He landed on the ground and smiled at Luo Fang. You're going to challenge me? He said. Yes, answered Luo Fang. Luo Fang knew that even if he lost, he could keep doing research and trying. After all he needed to do was to defeat Ancestor within 100,000 eras. What weapon should I use? Luo Fang asked. Let's use our bare hands. Well, shall we? Ancestor raised his left hand. This godly body of his had been transformed from other elements. Hands, said Luo Fang. He was taken aback. Hands as weapons. You've already comprehended the heart of Beast God, said Ancestor. Don't you think your hands are weapons? Luo Fang was startled. Thousands of years' worth of memories flooded back. For beast gods traveling in the universe, their claws, tails, and horns all contained the beast god conception. Even the spiritual force weapons were the bodies of beast gods. At this moment, Luo Fang felt as though the enormous gap between close combat and spiritual force weapons had disappeared. The techniques he had created could be used both for close combat and as spiritual force weapons. Warrior path and spiritual force leader path, they're the same. Luo Fang was bewildered. You've comprehended the heart of Beast God, Ancestor smiled. If you didn't, you had to focus on either the warrior path or the spiritual force leader path. After all, Mixing them together is bad for comprehending the heart of Beast God. Besides, Beast Gods are naturally better at using their godly bodies to fight, which is why those on the warrior path are better at comprehending the heart of Beast God and finally become Beast Gods. Luo Fang nodded. Primal Chaos City leader had told him this before and insisted that he concentrate on the warrior path. However, for the past 180 million years, he had set aside the warrior path and spiritual force leader path, instead focusing on the engraving picture path. Without realizing it, he had fully comprehended the heart of Beast God. "Do you still need weapons?" Ancestor asked. Luo Fang smiled. "If Beast Gods can use their claws, then I can use my hands as well." Ancestor stood still. "Attack!" he commanded. Luo Fang looked from afar and used the Mosha body for the combat. After all, Ancestor would also use the godly body at the same level. Hong! Countless engravings started to flow on Luo Fang's godly body, and he dashed toward Ancestor like a beam of golden light. At this moment, Luo Fang felt the Beast God in his body charging his competitor. The attack contained the Beast God path, and also contained ultimate techniques of Universe Masters. The attack was fierce and quick, faster than the Shi Wu wings. Break! Luo Fang arrived at where Ancestor stood. He grabbed Ancestor as his left hand became a claw, and the engravings on its fingers started to connect with each other. Pang! My Ancestor waved his hand and they clashed. Ancestor took a step back. Ha ha ha! Luo Fang felt overjoyed. The memories of the Beast God merged with him at this moment. Charge, claws, legs. Luo Fang was absorbed in the golden light, and the roaring of Beast Gods resounded around him. Fast, sharp. Ancestor was suppressed. Although he tried to resist it, Luo Fang was getting more and more skilled, as if he truly were a Beast God. Peng. His fingers were sharp like claws. Pooh! They pierced through Ancestor's chest. Ancestor looked down, smiled, and nodded. He took a step back, and his godly body recovered. "You won," he said. Luo Fang, standing in the golden light, was dazed. Had he actually defeated Ancestor? Ancestor would only perform Universe Master level pinnacle techniques. And though he could only maintain his godly body at the same level as Luo Fang's, he was still Ancestor after all. It was a surreal feeling to have defeated Ancestor. "Thank you, Ancestor," Luo Fang said respectfully. Ancestor had focused on defense from the beginning of the combat, which was why Luo Fang had been able to make better and better attacks, and thus fully understand the way Beast Gods fought. "No need to thank me," said Ancestor, shaking his head and smiling. "I performed the best defense pinnacle techniques of Universe Masters, but I still failed to defend against you. I might have won if I had attacked first, but you will still win over me after several challenges. There's no need to waste time." Luo Fang was full of gratitude. He had benefited so much in the past 180 million years in the Beast God sector. Oh, the heart of Beast God was a pleasant surprise, and the engraving picture path was a brand new path for him. Plus, he had created an ultimate technique of the Universe Master level. Ha 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 ha. A guffaw resounded around him, followed by a shadow. Sitting Mountain Guest looked at Luo Fang from afar. After 180 million years, this disciple of his had finally evolved. In the past, Luo Fang hadn't had much time to practice. He stood among the great beings because of the enormous godly body and force armor. But when it came to laws and techniques, he was significantly weaker. Yet his law comprehension and techniques had now reached an incredibly eminent level, even better than many universe overlords. "I've accumulated enough," said Sitting Mountain Guest. "I believe this disciple of mine will have an easy time becoming a universe overlord. Perhaps the only difficulty he's going to have is becoming a Universe Master." Sitting Mountain Guest was satisfied. Flame Emperor had disappointed him, which was why he had devoted all his resources and time to his third disciple. Fortunately, his third disciple hadn't upset him. The laughter attracted both Luo Fang and Ancestor. "Master, Luo Fang was dazed by the shadow flying toward him. "Sitting mountain guest," said Ancestor with a smile. "Don't be smug. Your disciple is indeed impressive. However, don't forget that he has a golden-horned beast body, and his soul has completely merged with the godly body. It's almost impossible to tell whether he's a human or a golden-horned beast." "Who will say no if I insist that he's a golden-horned beast?" "That's between your alliance and the humans," Sitting Mountain Guest said as he landed. "It has nothing to do with me. Whether this disciple of mine belongs to the human race or Space Beast Alliance doesn't concern me at all." Luo Fang stepped forward and said, "Master." "Okay." Sitting Mountain Guest smiled and nodded. He glanced at Ancestor. "Don't forget our bet." Luo Fang's face immediately registered a look of anticipation. Previously, he had heard from Ancestor that the get between Ancestor and Teacher Sitting Mountain Guest involved his wager, a set of True Treasure series, and Teacher's wager, a piece of a pinnacle true treasure. If Ancestor lost, then he would have to bestow this set of True Treasure series to Luo Fang. This was definitely a great opportunity. Now, for them to use these items as wagers meant the True Treasure series and the Pinnacle True Treasure must have been of comparable value. His Force Armor was one such Pinnacle True Treasure. And Blade River Luo, a top-tier domain-type True Treasure with an extremely strong attacking power, was comparable to Force Armor. It was so massive that its entire birth process had to be divided into several segments to reach completion. Thus, it was quite a sensation. It was little wonder that Flame Emperor had been so reluctant to give up Force Armor to Luo Fang back then. Such events went to show that true treasures such as Force Armor and Blade River Luo were very precious. So precious, in fact, that great beings like Flame Emperor and Primal Chaos City Leader covet them. Yet only Universe Supreme beings such as Ancestor and Sitting Mountain Guest had the magnitude of boldness to use such precious treasures as the stakes in a bet. "You are one of the top 9 powers in the universe. Ancestor of Space Beast Alliance, you can't be that petty," teased Sitting Mountain Guest. "I am waiting for that True Treasure series of yours." Ancestor cast a look at Sitting Mountain Guest. His expression revealed his heartache. Even a being as great as Ancestor would feel the sting of this loss. Previously, when he had been so confident that he would win the Pinnacle True Treasure from Sitting Mountain Guest, he had not expected that he would lose the gamble. "Fair is fair," Ancestor said. "This True Treasure series is one I can still afford to lose. According to our agreement, I shall bestow this True Treasure series to Luo Fang." "Yes." Sitting Mountain Guest smiled and nodded. "That's right. Bestow it to my disciple." Ancestor turned to look at Luo Fang. "Luo Fang, Ancestor," Luo Fang replied respectfully. He did not consider defeating Ancestor something to be proud of. It was, after all, only to fulfill a gamble. If Ancestor were to display his true power, his ability to ensure that whatever order he gave would be effectively enforced would have rendered Luo Fang powerless with no way to fight back. If one was willing to pay the price, he could even kill a universe master. "Look!" Ancestor pointed in midair, and a black beast figure suddenly appeared. "Huh?" Luo Fang looked carefully. It was a wild beast that was black from head to toe. It had 4 powerful hooves and claws, and as well as sharp fangs that pointed to the sky and a single horn on its forehead that gave off a shiny gleam. Its body was covered with layers of armor, as though it were filled with limitless magical power. Luo Fang was completely captivated at first glance. It was truly a stirring beauty. The black wild beast was around 300 feet tall, and it landed right in front of Luo Fang. It was then that Luo Fang realized, to his astonishment, that this was a dead creature. It was lifeless. Ancestor walked over and caressed the leg of the gigantic beast. "This is my True Treasure series. I named it Beast God Armor." Sitting Mountain Guest looked on with great pleasure, then laughed aloud. Ancestor cast him a glance before turning to look at Luo Fang. Your teacher is gloating, but it's to be expected. Previously, because of this True Treasure series, there was chaotic battling all over. Your teacher was so scheming. He launched a sneak attack and immediately fled the scene. I had to pay quite a sizable price to defeat that adverse universe, and finally, I managed to obtain this True Treasure series. Listening on, Luo Fang felt his excitement rising. It was as though he had personally undergone this battle of Universe Supreme Masters. This True Treasure series consists of a total of 526 True Treasures, of which 521 are ordinary True Treasures. 4 are Senior True Treasures, and the remaining one is a top-tier True Treasure, Ancestor explained. The sharp fangs and scales on its body, for instance, can be dismantled and used individually. Combining everything to form one body, its power is massive. Luo Fang was shocked. A 526 True Treasures to form one True Treasure series? It was said that Primal Chaos City Leader's 1,000 Treasure River was formed by 1,000 True Treasures put together, and this, in Luo Fang's eyes, did not pale in comparison. Moreover, out of these 526 True Treasures, one was at the top-tier level. Breaking this down, the horn alone is a top-tier True Treasure, said Ancestor, and once combined with the power of a few hundred other True Treasures, its power will skyrocket. Ancestor gave a sentimental sigh. By placing this True Treasure series on one's godly body, every part of the godly body becomes a weapon ready to attack. It is definitely the most suitable tool for a great being who wants to cultivate the Beast God path and become a Universe Master. I named it Beast God Armor and had planned to bestow it to one of the Universe Masters from my Space Beast Alliance that I found to have great potential. Ancestor looked at Luo Fang. Now it's yours. Luo Fang felt his heart pounding faster. Beast God Armor. Thank you, Ancestor, Luo Fang said, showing his gratitude respectfully. Ancestor smiled and nodded, and with one wave, the black beast figure flew over to Luo Fang. A golden-horned beast appeared on Luo Fang's shoulder. At this moment, his golden-horned beast body had temporarily put away the Force Armor, Shiwu Wings, the 9 Tiger River, and the other treasures, storing them in the World Ring. It swooped down while exerting its godly power, speedily encircled the black beast figure to brand the beast with its life imprints. Hong! Then the black beast figure was instantly broken up into several hundred True Treasures, all black in color, which flew over to Golden Horned Beast at top speed and settled on him. There, the True Treasures fully integrated into Golden Horned Beast's body, covering every inch of him. In an instant, Golden Horned Beast transformed into a gigantic beast that was jet black all over. The scales covering every inch of his godly body were like knife blades. Even his fangs grew tremendously. The 5 sharp horns originally on his forehead had become 6. The middle horn was the longest, with a length of approximately 1.5 feet. At this juncture, Golden Horned Beast still maintained his miniaturized godly body, which was 3 feet long. Luo Fang's consciousness was cheering with joy. Wonderful, those sharp claws, that tail, and that godly body, and those sharp horns, everywhere. Every part of it was a true treasure. This True Treasure series was truly deserving of being considered most compatible with the Beast God path. Furthermore, Beast God Armor had incredible defensive power. It was essentially an attack-type True Treasure, and its defensive power was comparatively weaker. Yet its defensive power would still be on par with ordinary treasures of a top-tier True Treasure defense armor. The instant Luo Fang branded the armor with his life imprints, Beast God Armor transmitted some ancient information, including its actual name. Luo Fang was secretly confused. Huh? This Beast God Armor was originally named Northern Rock? What a strange name. Many treasures had original names, such as Silver Dragon Phantom and Golden King Armor. However, and their new users would normally give them other names, such as Ancient Boat Galaxy and Golden Armor. Beast God Armor's original name had been Northern Rock. Regardless of what its original name was, this Beast God Armor is indeed the most suitable one for my Golden Horned Beast body. Excellent. Roar! Golden Horned Beast got worked up and could not help letting out a roar of excitement. Ancestor nodded with satisfaction. Luo Fang, come here! Sitting Mountain Guest shouted out. Luo Fang obeyed immediately. Sitting Mountain Guest took Luo Fang aside and changed the universe law of the surroundings. If Ancestor wanted to listen to their conversation, he could, of course, make use of the universe laws to forcibly suppress this. But Ancestor would not go to that extent. And it was obvious that Sitting Mountain Guest had something to discuss with his disciple in private. Teacher, Luo Fang said as he sat down beside Sitting Mountain Guest, just a short 180 million years to succeed. Well done. Sitting Mountain Guest nodded his approval. You are stronger than your second brother. Luo Fang listened submissively. Back then I made you the star map, but looking at you today I'm afraid it will no longer be of much help, Sitting Mountain Guest said. Although you may only be a pinnacle undying now, you are highly accomplished in the studies of secret engravings. You are already at a strategically advantageous position. If you were to move on to studying the law path, in an extremely short period of time, you will be able to achieve a breakthrough and become a Universe Knight. Even if making your way past the threshold to be a Universe Knight may somewhat affect you, 1,000 years should be enough. Luo Fang nodded. He was also very confident. Studying the pictures of secret engravings had made him feel that studying the law path would be simple. It would be easy to understand. Previously, he had been restricted to only studying the engravings because of the gamble, so Luo Fang had simply refrained from studying the law path. When you have become a Universe Knight, you will be using Star Tower while being new to it, but you will already be able to activate the entire Star Tower, Sitting Mountain Guest said. By then, with Star Tower, this star map will be useless. Luo Fang nodded and could not help asking, Teacher, does this mean that I have to undergo another ordeal to obtain the 5th black metal board of the 9-volume manual? To obtain the 3rd black metal board, Luo Fang had sent himself to Ice Hell. To obtain the 4th, he had fallen into this Beast God sector. No, said Sitting Mountain Guest. Then he added with a smile, if your teacher's methods are all so easily fathomed, could I still be called a teacher? Luo Fang was taken by surprise. In terms of training through ordeals, this Beast God sector has put you through enough, Sitting Mountain Guest said. 180 million years. You can now create a Universe Master Ultimate technique. Based on your studies on pictures of secret engravings and the law path, we have mutual confirmation. That's enough. What about the 5th black metal board? Asked Luo Fang. He could not wait to get his hands on the 5th black metal board right away. When the time comes, you will know, Sitting Mountain Guest said. Luo Fang was left with no other choice. Sitting Mountain Guest looked at Luo Fang with a satisfied expression. Continue to work hard. Your power is extremely strong now, but just wait until the day you use Star Tower. No one in this universe will be able to look down on you. As your teacher, I have hopes for you to become even stronger. Yes, teacher, said Luo Fang. He was expectant, too. Over the course of these 180 million years, he had undergone a total transformation. He was no longer a weakling, unarmed with battling techniques, who could only depend on setting his godly being ablaze to obtain power when facing his enemies, and hoping that his enemies' powers would be consumed before he was finished. Consuming his opponents to death was only achievable in the land of Extremis, because that was a place where no one could send out calls for help to other great beings of their races. However, in other places, such as the original star, when one met with danger, it was always possible to obtain help from other great beings. After all, every supreme being was important. Sitting Mountain Guest turned his head, transmitting his voice to Ancestor, who stood in the distance. Space Ancestor, thank you for all these years. Now that he has met my expectations, I will take him and leave this place. There's no hurry, wait a moment. Ancestor was by their side in a flash. Sitting mountain guest looked at Ancestor. There is something else? Nothing to do with you. Ancestor looked at Luo Fang. I have something to tell Luo Fang. He is my disciple, said sitting mountain guest. How is this unrelated to me? Luo Fang, from how I see it, I think you should still focus on staying within humans. But sitting mountain guest was still mid-sentence when he suddenly started laughing. Luo Fang, he said, since Space Ancestor has something to tell you, you should stay and chat with him. I will wait for you here. Then we can head back to the primal universe. Yes, teacher, Luo Fang replied. Right. It was time to head back to the primal universe. Sitting mountain guest walked off into the distance, and Luo Fang followed him. He bowed to show his respect, then addressed him. Ancestor, he said. Ancestor looked at Luo Fang and asked directly, has the thought of leaving the human race ever crossed your mind? Let's wait for the next episode, guys. We continue in the next part.